Welcome to Bernie's Bums, episode 10. Olivia, how's it going?
Hanging in there yourself?
Hey, I'm all right. So, to anyone who's been listening, sorry for the bump in the road of the last 2 weeks. There's been a lot of travel, a lot of baby things, and a whole lot of other stuff thrown in that kept us from recording, but that's can't make excuses. We're not a podcast that makes excuses. We got to go out there and get it done each and every week. So, we're looking to give you a nice action-packed 30 to 40 minutes or however long we go today. So let's hit it. Since we last talked, the Brewers are 4-9. Honestly, that is a lot better than based off of watching and seeing everything. Without even looking at statistics, I would have thought they won 2 games throughout that stretch. But it is a little more reassuring to see that your rough patch in your season so far is 4-9.
Yeah, I had to listen to a lot of the games over the past week, so I didn't necessarily see a lot of the issues that occurred, but just with talking with some people who watch, apparently it was pretty rough.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I can't say much other than just hearing pitching wise how it was very, very rough, and some of this situational hitting was rough. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean it was tough watching that. One thing that I've been a, I've been a supporter of Chase Anderson. Like he's a guy that I think he is a not necessarily like an impact guy for you, but definitely a good dude to have around. I have never been more frustrated with Chase Anderson than I was on Friday night. I mean, he got himself into trouble every single inning right away. There's a guy on base, and as you know with baseball, it's the same thing. Like it's not even just the first batter; it's the first pitch of every single at bat. Like if you're throwing a ball first pitch, which I'd be interested to see what his first pitch ball strike ratio was that day, but I'd imagine it honestly his strike ratio at that point was probably in the low 20s, if not in the teens, because he was starting off counts 1-0, 2-0, even 3-0, and trying to battle back and dig himself out of a hole quite a bit. And usually that lends yourself to letting guys on base right away. He was taking forever between pitches to the point where in that 18 inning game where they played the Mets and ended up winning, that game lasted right around 5 hours. This game in regulation on Friday night was 4 hours and 30 minutes long. And a lot of it was because Chase Anderson was getting a sign, pausing, getting set, and stepping off more than like right around like 2 or 3 times each batter when he was getting into trouble. Now I get it. Like you got to get yourself into a rhythm and that you're struggling, but oh man, you got to figure out something. Otherwise, you need to come out. Or I don't know. They kept rolling with him for a while, and had they pulled him a little earlier, and you never know what's going to happen throughout a game, but had you pulled him a little earlier, there was actually a shot that they could have came back and won it just based off of how they were hitting the ball down the stretch.
Yeah, there like one of my biggest pet peeves is I get it, like you have to like take your time and get
Sure.
set up. When you're stepping off after every
Mm-hmm.
single pitch, that's when I miss Brent Suter.
Yes,
That's when
you
I
beat
miss
me
him
to it. You
so
beat
much.
me to it.
But like
That's
I completely get it. But being a starter though too, like you gotta move it along because not only are you killing everybody watching, but you're also kind of killing yourself almost. Because I feel like I've never been a pitcher, but I feel like that's just more time for you to get in your head and for you to overthink things.
shoot, you're killing your hitters at that point too, because like you even with your hitting, you get in a rhythm, and I know there's the whole thing, and you see it with the Brewers of you just got to go hit, and that's true. Don't get me wrong, but when you're itching to get in there, and all of a sudden like it's on them to stay tuned in, stay focused, and everything. But when things are dragging on and on, it makes it a little hard to stay focused. So you know, keep those things moving, keep those quick twitch muscles flowing and whatnot, and um, I don't know. Everyone's got their own way of doing things, and I suppose that's Chase Anderson's. But I've never seen him work that slow. But I've also never seen him in that much trouble that he was putting himself in before. Um, so going along with the pitching, Jimmy Nelson, Adrian Hauser, they are basically flipping roles at this point. Jimmy has not looked good since coming back. And Adrian Hauser has provided some quality innings for the Brewers and has started before and actually came in as a starter for the organization. So he's going to be taking Jimmy's next start. What are your thoughts on this trade-off, so to speak?
I think you needed it to happen. I think just for Jimmy and mentally, I mean, he's been stuck in rehab for how long, and then comes in and doesn't do as well as I believe he hoped he would. So I think just for Jimmy, this will be probably not something that he'll like, but something that he'll need. I mean, I always had an opinion that he should have moved into the bullpen before starting, but I get why they wanted him to start right away and be on a continuous schedule. But I think, you can't complain that Hauser is going to be put in, because of what Hauser's done over the last couple of weeks has just been outstanding to see, just from an organizational depth standpoint. Like, you have that person to fall back on.
Sure. And that is a big thing. And, hopefully you can catch some lightning in a bottle with Hauser and have him jump out on the mound and be a guy that you can lean on a little bit more as far as the starting pitching goes, because you need guys to be getting into, like Brandon Woodruff he ran into a little bit of trouble late yesterday, but Woodruff did exactly what the Brewers need. And him and Davies have been guys that when your starting pitching is scuffling big time and you're overusing your bullpen left and right, they find a way to be the guys that can, we're going to throw for a while for you because we know we need you to, we know that's what you need. We're going to throw into the over 100 pitches for the most part. And, that's been phenomenal for the Brewers to be able to have him and Davies being able to eat innings like that. Now, you hope that Jimmy Nelson can end up being that again. You look at when he left off, Jimmy Nelson was a legit, that's not the guy you want to run into when you're facing him in a series. We'll see what happens. I mean, I don't think we should be expecting a ton out of Jimmy Nelson this year, or maybe even in years to come, other than maybe coming back and being like a formidable starter. And I hope that I'm shortchanging him a little bit there, because I love watching him play. I respect the hustle on getting back and seeing everything that he's gone through. But right now, I think a lot of people were viewing him as your mid-season acquisition, or your acquisition you brought an ace back. Like, pump the brakes. And even the Brewers are kind of trying to get fans to pump the brakes on expectations a little bit. And I'm glad that people aren't jumping all over him about not having a great few first games. So hopefully this is a way for him to right the ship. And Adrian Hauser, I think, is going to be a guy that's around for a while, or able to be someone that is moved as a value piece for something in the future. Let's take a look at what we had seen throughout obviously, with us kind of being out and whatnot, we didn't see as much, but just looking at the numbers, since we last talked, the Brewers split with Houston. They went down there, 1-1, lost 1. Lost 2 to San Francisco, 1-1. That's a tough one with them being a pretty bad team. That's something that the Brewers, you hope that they can max out on those opportunities. Get swept in San Diego, and then you split with Cincinnati. Honestly, throughout all of that, the Cincinnati series was reassuring to me, even though they gave up a whole bunch of runs and didn't necessarily slam the door yesterday especially. But you took a team who had won, I think it was 7 straight. Is it 6 or 7 straight? And you went out there and you now, don't get me wrong, there are the Brewers and the Reds on the same level. Not necessarily, but there's sometimes in baseball and there's sometimes in just sports in general where one team is playing at an elevated form, and that's something that we were seeing with Cincinnati. Everyone's hitting. Puig's just hitting the balls out left and right. Suarez decided he was going to start hitting the ball. And then you look at their pitching. Their pitching was pretty much lights out up until Sunday, I guess even Saturday, but and the tail end of the bullpen on even Friday. But their starting pitching was really getting after the Brewers, and that's something that, you see Luis Castillo and you go beat him up. That's something that I think is grounds for celebration for them. So hopefully that's something that's helping right the ship, and they can go get after Seattle, who has a pretty rough starting pitching core that the Brewers are going to be facing. We can talk about that in a little bit. But what were your thoughts about what you had heard, the limited amount that you had seen from this stretch? Are there any takeaways, positive or negative, that you have?
Well, I think this, like, and I'll say this every single time you hit a rough spot in the baseball season. First of all, it's baseball. It's going to happen. It happens to everybody. They suck. They don't feel good, but they happen. Second of all, to hear multiple players in the clubhouse say that they never wavered through the whole thing, and that, like, even though there's so much noise on the outside, that they don't even consider it, that they go out every single night and they play the same game they played the night before and that the night before that. So I think when you look at it from just the player aspect, to see them never waver and to constantly see them pushing and pushing and pushing, like, at least from the little that I was able to hear while I was gone, they're always trying to fight back for something. They never have given up as long as I've known the Brewers. So I think from that standpoint, you know, that's a pretty solid thing to say about a team.
Right. Well, you look at a prime example of that is Friday night. They're getting pounded, like absolutely pounded. Like there looked like there was absolutely no hope. And their offense and the way that they fought, basically, that was the reason. Their stubbornness was the biggest reason on why that game went really long. Is because they decided we're not quitting here. And they go load the bases in the bottom of the eighth, and they're not able to capitalize on it. But you know, honestly, at that point, who cares? The fact that you put a dent in that thing and made it a 4-run game after giving up 11 runs, I'll take that. I'll take that fire and energy, and hopefully, it's obviously one of those where it's like we're gonna learn from that. We're gonna go out there and we're gonna pound them the next game. So that's the thing that I love about the team, is that they have that never say die attitude, and they go out there and they compete, and that can't be said about every single team throughout the major leagues. So you and I are a little different. I think you and I are going to have some different thoughts on this. Derek Dietrich, talking about the last series. So Derek Dietrich set a record for the amount of hit by pitches taken by one player in a series with 6, and it was very close to 7 based off of Sunday. So where do you lie on, or let's just say this. So let's recap one of the things and kind of 2 of them. Dietrich, he leaned out for one that was borderline over the plate. I mean, it would have been high. It's a ball anyway, but leaned out on one that was borderline over the plate. He didn't get called back. Do you have a thought on how hit by pitches need to be enforced at all?
See, I think it's definitely a tough topic, because where do you draw the line as to that? I think, just like from my personal standpoint, I'm a big believer in, like, play the game how it's supposed to be played. Like, keep it simple, keep it raw, keep it you. So the fact that he was supposed to, now I will say this again, I wasn't able to watch the game. I was listening to the game. Right. And they had seemed very fed up about it. And then I also seen one of them on Twitter the next day. But the fact that you feel you need to lean into a pitch to get on base, I find is completely ridiculous. And I find that it just looks bad on your character at that standpoint, because, like I said, I'm all about doing it right, doing it raw. So, I mean, I think it's very difficult to find a way to enforce it, because it's to that point where you really don't know where to draw the line. And it's bang, bang. And it's kind of almost an instinct thing on the umpires. So I don't know how you do that, but yeah, I don't know.
So the way I look at it is, if I'm in the batter's box and you're throwing one inside of the box, I'm turning and I'm taking it, or I'm just not moving for it. Like, I don't feel you should have to move out of the way. If you're going to throw one at me or throw one remotely near me, I'm not gonna move, and if you hit me, you hit me. Now, I shouldn't say that because if I have a 95-mile-an-hour fastball coming at me, can't say I'd be doing that at that point. But that was always my stance when I was playing. I may give you a little turn and try to fake like I'm getting out of the way, but like I'm gonna get on base any way possible. And if you're gonna throw that in on me, then I'm gonna take it. I don't agree with him leaning out over the plate. I don't think that you should have to try to get out of the way of a pitch though. Because that's on the pitcher and that's my way on base. Like I think that's a gritty way on, and I respect that a ton. When other players do it, so I don't know. I don't lie on. I don't think that it's something that's like bad to do, to just obviously get hit by a pitch or not get out of the way. But when you're doing something where you're taking on away from the game, like kind of throwing your arm out, the umpire really, I mean, like you've seen guys get called back for leaning out over the plate. You've seen guys get a ball, or even if it's a strike, even sometimes. Like, I don't know. It's something that you got to recognize as an umpire and enforce it. And I know that's a human element where some guys enforce it a little more than others. But at the same time, it's like, if you're going to throw one in my kitchen, I'm going to take that and I'm going to go to first.
And I see where you're coming from. But then if it going off of that though, the part that really, really got on my nerves is the fact that he felt the need to go off on this tantrum about it, to the point where you have Eric Thames trying to restrain people. That's the point where I feel that I get very angry, is because fine, you can take the pitch, you can turn a little bit, but then don't make a big deal out of it, because essentially it was your doing at that point.
Mm-hmm. That one, the one where he made a deal about it, because I was there for it, Garrett came in tight on him. Like, that wasn't that seemed like it might have been.
Oh yeah, that was probably nearly.
That was the third one, yeah.
Okay.
That's the one that it looked like he was coming for him there. So I understand why Dietrich was upset about it. But at the same time, it's, you leaned into one the last time, so now he's giving you something to really be hurting about. Which, to each their own on the quote unquote unwritten rules of baseball, however you feel about it. But I'm not going to take a stance on whether I agree or disagree on that. I think that's for everyone else to decide upon. But we'll stay on pitching. So going into this Seattle series, the Brewers will be first game. They're facing Marco Gonzalez. It'll be Gonzalez versus Davies. The second one will be Wade LeBlanc versus Adrian Hauser. And the third will be Mike Leake versus Chase Anderson. So Marco Gonzalez is a guy that's rolling in with I think it's a 4.38 ERA, which, it's okay. Then we're bumping that up to Wade LeBlanc having a 5.44. Granted, he's been out for a bit and hasn't pitched as many innings as the other guys, but then you see Mike Leake pulling in with a 4.45 ERA. I know you're not big into ERA or anything. However, when you're seeing that along with whips that are, 1.37, 1.27, you're looking at a whip from LeBlanc that's 1.42. We're seeing guys are giving up walks and hits left and right for the most part. And with the Brewers firepower, those could be very costly for a pitcher. What are your thoughts going into the series, just purely based off of pitching projections?
Well, I mean, my viewpoint is always, obviously, you got to look at the stats, you got to look at the matchups, you got to figure out, and you have to be prepared going in. And I realize all of that, but also, just for me personally, you can't judge somebody by that, because you never know how they're going to go into a game. Like, this kind of relates back to almost how it was when we played Miami and we're completely killed by Miami in 3 games.
Right.
Like, you look at Miami and you look at them statistically and you think, wow, record-wise, they're not doing so hot. But it's all dependent on how somebody rolls into a game. So I think you can look at all of that, but you can't necessarily predict a series upon that.
Sure. And, I mean, it's definitely like, and that's what you look at. Obviously, it's easy to say, well, on paper, this game should be won based off of this, or that, or this game should be lost based off of this, or that. The beauty of it is that it's not played on paper. However, it is you get an idea of what the games could look like. I mean, you look at they'll be playing Mike Leake. Like I said, they'll be seeing Mike Leake. Well, the guy gives up home runs left and right, but he also strikes guys out. So it's almost like, which guy are you going to see? Because you see straight power with him, in the sense of you're going to have power going out, or that you're, the sexy number of being a strikeout guy. So which guy are you going to see from him that day? And that's, going off of stats, you never know, but it sets the table for what you could possibly see. And who knows, maybe it's going to be a 1-0 game going forward, but it's something that it's definitely interesting to look at, because it just seems like it plays in the favor of the Brewers, and hopefully that's the case. Let's hop into yay or nays. So the new All-Star format is that they're trying to make it like almost a presidential election with the primaries and primaries, final vote. So Brewers had three players that were picked to go to the primary round, which I think voting for that starts on the 26th, if I'm not mistaken. But Mike Moustakas at second base will be with Ozzie Albies and from Atlanta, who has no business being there, and Ketel Marte from Arizona, who has a lot of business being there. The catching position is occupied by Yasmani Grandal of the Milwaukee Brewers. And then Brian McCann from Atlanta, who has no business being there. And then Wilson Contreras.
Why did he get in there?
Yeah, seriously. I don't know. I mean, JT Realmuto seemed like a very viable option to be in there. Who else? There's another one that I was looking at that seemed to fit the bill for being an all-star, even over Wilson Contreras, who fills out the catching spot for the catching primaries from the Chicago Cubs. I don't know. Atlanta and Chicago really came out to vote, apparently, and it's like when Addison Russell got picked as a starter for the All-Star game, and when the Royals came out and voted every single player on their team to the All-Star game. I mean, it's kind of a joke at that point, but Christian Yelich is also in the primaries with Cody Bellinger, Acuna. I would have to. I didn't have all of those guys down, but I'm going to pull it up right now. But you'd think Christian Yelich is a for sure lock, right?
Now, if I stand corrected, everybody who's been voted into the primaries get to go. It's just voting on who starts.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure that's what it is. I don't know. I've had to look at it like 4 or 5 different times to be able to figure out what exactly it is, but I think that's what it is, and I think they're just kind of trying to continue drumming up excitement for it, so to speak. But okay, so the NL outfield. So you have the top 3 guys were Bellinger, Yelich, and Acuna. I'd say all 3 of those are very fitting to be in there. Then after that, you got Charlie Blackmon, another guy. Then you got Nick Markakis, Jock Peterson. Jock Peterson, he's been crushing the ball.
Really?
Yep.
I mean, yeah, I guess, but like I would never pick him out as like you're a star.
Right, it's kind of crazy. Yeah, and I agree. Like he wasn't a guy that would have crossed my mind. Then you look at what he's been doing this year. He's been pounding the ball.
For him.
Then you look and you see Kyle Schwarber, Jason Hayward, and Albert Almora Jr. in there. What? Like how do you justify that? Like I don't get how. I just don't understand it. Like you have Jason Hayward and Albert Almora Jr. and even Kyle Schwarber. Those are not 3 guys that are top 9 outfielders in the NL. I don't know. I'm hot about it, but it is what it is. then again, you look at the next guys that missed out. The next one's Bryce Harper. Are you kidding me? Like, Bryce Harper has been just flat out bad. Oh, he hit a mammoth shot that was 460 feet.
I hate
Great.
that.
Good for him. He's hitting 230. Like, awesome. Good for him. And
No, I mean, my output on anything that's fan voted is
right.
It's so stupid because you have a bunch. I mean, there's a good majority of people who are educated and know their stuff, but there's also a bunch of idiots who just go in and they're picking, the sexy players, like what you were saying with Harper, and he hit this like 400+ foot bomb. It's like,
Sorry, I'm wrong. He's hitting 250 with 13 home runs. Sorry, my bad.
But
Yeah.
like, I don't know if any of y'all like pay attention to football at all, but it just reminds me of when David Bakhtiari, the best left tackle in football, doesn't get voted into the Pro Bowl, but yet is like all pro first team. It's just stupid.
And my guy Kevin Zeitler of the New York Giants, who didn't get voted in as an All Pro or Pro Bowl guard, even though he was number 1 in Pro Football Focus ratings. But whatever. Sorry, I'm not mad about that at all. But anyway, back to baseball. So yeah, Bryce Harper, definitely not worth the contract. I guess no, he's worth the contract. He's worth whatever you're going to pay him. But at the same time, I can't even fathom the fact that and then Albert Elmore Jr. The guy's batting 245 with 7 home runs, 2 stolen bases, 22 RBI, on base percentage of 286.
I was really hoping you were going to put the on base percentage in there because I was blocking out all those.
Oh my gosh. The OPS of 682. 682.
That's almost
Oh, man. Sorry, let's keep picking on the Cubs. I'm going to keep going. Jason Hayward. Jason Hayward is hitting 264 with 10 home runs, so somewhat respectable, but definitely not an all-star. On base percentage of 356. That's pretty solid. OPS of 780. Again, what is this guy? He is a decent baseball player this year. Pretty good. A guy that I wouldn't hate to have on my roster, especially just based off of his prowess in the outfield. But he has no business being in an all-star game. Last one, Kyle Schwarber. Kyle Schwarber, 231, 16 home runs, 35 RBI, on-base percentage of 323, and OPS of 790. Last time I checked, he's your leadoff hitter as well. I don't get it. Whatever. I can be mad about it, but that's going to be what it's going to be, and there's no reason it should be that way, but that's what the fans decided. So anyway, back to the real question. Yay or nay, all 3 of the All-Star finalists will be voted in as starters, and going back to it, the 3 Brewers are Moose, Yelich, and Grandal. Are they going to be starters?
In my mind, they all should be because they're all the best in their position. Especially offensively. I mean, I wouldn't put Grandal defensively, but hey, another discussion for another time. But I'm gonna say.
I think we've had that one a number of times. So.
But I'm gonna go nay. Just basically like what we just talked about. There's always gonna be idiots voting, and I think Yelich is a solid, but I don't think. I mean, there's always idiots, and I think somebody's gonna take over Moose or Grandal. But hey, if all 3 win, I'm down.
Sure. I'm going to say nay, and this is based off of deservedness too, which is crazy that I'm going to say this, but Mike Moustakas doesn't deserve to be the starter out of those 3. I think Ketel Marte.
Okay, yeah.
He's hitting pretty close to 310. He's got 20 home runs, so right on his heels, and he has more RBI than Moose does, if I'm not mistaken, and a ton of stolen bases.
What are we talking on base percentage, though, man?
Okay, well, let's go take a look at Ketel Marte's on base percentage. So Ketel Marte, this fella's on base percentage is 359. Or sorry, he only has 4 stolen bases. I thought he had more than that. That's my bad. But he gets on base too. I don't know. He's been really impressive. I've been thoroughly surprised with him this year. and he plays so many different positions too. I mean, he's fun to watch. Not that Moose isn't, and Moose has been phenomenal in the field in comparison to what I was expecting from him at second base. But yeah, Marte, I think Marte deserves to be the guy at second base, even though Moustakas is right there on his heels. But I will compare them. So Moustakas has also a 359 on base percentage, so they're exactly the same with, I think 4 less RBI, batting average is lower, and he has 2 more home runs. So they're comparable in the sense of if you're going to go between on base, slugging, and OPS, because their OPS is Moose has him by 6 points. So I don't know. It's hard not to go with Marte for me, even though I want Moustakas to be that guy. But if nothing else, they're both in there, and deservedly so. Also, there's another point I need to make. In the NL, the next guy who just missed out for the second baseman is Kike Hernandez. Kike Hernandez is hitting 210. I know you're not an average person, but I think 210 is enough of a red flag to say, hey, maybe this guy shouldn't be in there.
That one makes me laugh.
How? Like an on-base percentage of 282.
Oof.
Jeez. They need to take it out of the hands of the fans. They need to go decide as a league on what they're going to do. Have managers do this, and then fans can vote on the starter.
I like that they're doing that with pitching, though, this year. Hasn't it always been managers?
Yeah, it's always been
That's
managers
the way
for
to
that.
go, though.
Right. I don't. Ugh. Whatever. If I keep talking about this, I'm just going to get hotter and hotter. So I'm not going to do that. All right. Next one. Moving on. Mauricio Dubon, Orlando Arcia, and or Keston Hiura will all be traded by the All-Star break.
This is an interesting topic because this is...
Well, let's split them up.
What?
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead. Finish what you're saying. Never mind. Go ahead.
This is going off the fact of you have quote-unquote too much talent for a very small position group, which isn't a problem in my book. But when you look at it, when there's 3 guys arguably all ready for the majors, I mean, obviously Orlando is because he's in the majors. Keston's ready. Mauricio could probably be ready, but could use a little more time maybe. But, I mean, I look at it where you need to kind of get rid of somebody, and you have that option because they're all very good in their own way. So I think, I mean, and then I was just scrolling through Twitter before we started recording, and I forgot who said it, but somebody said that the Giants want Bumgarner gone by the end of the week, and that
end of the week?
I don't know. I heard it from somewhere. Maybe not by the end of the week, but they want him gone, and that obviously the Brewers have always been interested in him. So I think that'll be interesting to see how that goes down. So I think
you have to give up a lot for him, I would think.
Yeah, but I mean, if you figure you're throwing Mauricio Dubon,
if you can build a package around Mauricio Dubon that doesn't require you to give up, and either Hiura. I'm even going to throw Corey Ray in there, even though
he has dived off a cliff. Holy!
He's been hurt. He's been hurt all year.
Sure.
So that's part of it. But yeah, you haven't heard much from him. I would say Bryce Terang. I guess basically, if you can throw Dubon in there without any other top 5 guys,
yeah,
it would be hard to say no. But then I'd imagine you have to eat a lot of Bumgarner's salary.
Yeah.
Which he signed through this year. So you don't really have to worry about that as much, but you almost hope to go get a guy who you have control for one more year, at least.
Yeah.
But whatever it may look like. I mean, if they get him on the cheap, why not? But I don't know. You're not seeing the same Madison Bumgarner that you had before. The same Madison Bumgarner who once dated a girl named Madison Bumgarner,
Are you
which I
serious?
think is really funny. Yeah,
That's
I heard that somewhere. Maybe I'm spreading slander, but yeah, I heard that, and I think that's hilarious. So I would love him in Milwaukee, just not for that fact, but just for the fact that you have a guy who's been there, done that, and sometimes that change of scenery really helps out with some guys. But we can definitely. I think he would be a guy that works out, but it's you got to look at the price you're paying for half a 2/3 of a season rental to half a season rental based off of what you're getting from him, and he hasn't been lights out at all this year. So we'll see. I'm thinking if any of those three get moved, it's going to be Dubon, but I don't know. I don't know how much value Dubon has. I really don't. Like I can't. Usually, I feel like I have a pretty good gauge on what a guy what you could command with value based off a certain player. But Dubon is a guy that I have no idea because it feels like he should have been in the MLB by now.
Well, yeah, but the injury. I mean,
But he's been hurt. Yeah,
he
he
would have been if
probably
he
would have been last year. Yeah,
yeah, he would have.
but that hurts. That probably hurts his stock too.
Yeah, but I think
Coming off an
that,
ACL.
but he's also done very well coming off.
Sure,
ACL.
sure.
So I think that kind of balances it out.
That's true, and I just don't know about him. I guess so. We'll get into a few other trade things later. With this, I know I don't have it written down, but I have some thoughts. But I'll save them. I'll save them till the end on this one. Next one, Christian Yelich will win the race to 30 home runs before the All-Star break, and don't you dare say I don't care.
I mean, yeah, he can do it. What is he at, 29 now? I don't care.
I think he's got 28.
28?
I think he's got 28.
Well,
does he have 29? No, he does have 29.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. I mean, if you look at it, we're at home all week. Yeah. I mean,
I feel like that's a good spot to hit home runs.
That's
Christian Yelich has 29 home runs. By the way, his on-base percentage is .435 because I figured you probably want to know that too.
I mean, do you want to get his weighted on-base average on there too? Because that's really
No,
impressive as well.
I'm
don't
not
even know what that is.
I do, but I'm not going to do it because that's another whole thing. Anyway, carry on. So yes, I would think that he would win it before they get there before the All-Star break too.
Yeah.
Now to a harder question. Jimmy Nelson will return to the starting rotation by August.
When you say return, do you mean like
he's back? He's back in it. Like he's not
like consistently starting, not just like spot start.
Yes.
Okay. Well,
I guess both.
Both?
Like when do you think he makes a spot start by, and then when do you think he's back in the rotation?
Well, it depends.
If at all.
You're gonna hate me.
Yeah, of course
it depends on everything, man. I mean, you look at our rotation now, and it's a little bit in shambles at the moment. You have guys who are hurt and guys who aren't performing as well as you would hope them to. But, it depends what Adrian Hauser can do. It depends how Gio comes back. It depends how Davies continues throughout the season. But I do see him probably making another start before August. So for that, I'll say yay. Mm-hmm. Whether I don't know when that'll be. Like I said, it all depends. But yeah, I could see him making another start before August.
Right. Yeah, that's a tough one. I think he'll be back I'm gonna say yay because I think he'll be back consistently pitching the rotation by August. But that's really dependent on what he does in the pen. We're seeing that in Atlanta, actually, with Sean Newcomb. I know he just got drilled in the head by a line drive too, but I think he's back because I think they just put him on concussion IL. But he was struggling at the start. They threw him in the back end of the bullpen, and he was lights out for him. And now he's working his way back to being a starter for him, a guy who's supposed to be a really good frontline starter in the MLB. But that's another experiment that they're looking at. Not everyone's the same, so I would definitely welcome having him around. But I would definitely welcome having Jimmy Nelson back in that rotation, and I hope that's something that they can that they can do, but I could be completely off base on that. Maybe he's not ready to be back. The next one, Yasmani Grandal is now the Brewers' leadoff guy.
No. No, I mean, my whole thing is like
On base percentage of 384. He walks a lot.
Okay, here's where I'm coming from. I am coming from the standpoint of matchup perspective, from a standpoint of who's hot. Because, I mean, I could literally talk all day about how a lineup is built because there's so much information that goes into it. But I think, sure, he may be here at the top of the lineup for a little bit now, but I think it's because what Counts was talking about is he's who's hot right now. So why not?
Mm-hmm.
Because
get him the most at bats.
Yeah, because you have the most at bats, and it's how it statistically all works out. And there's this whole other spiel I could go on for days, but you look at that and you're like, yeah, okay. But if he flames out, I don't want Yaz to be sitting at the top of my lineup. That's when I want Lorenzo Cain when he's right, which whole nother discussion.
Well, he's a 4-hitter now, so.
Was he?
Yeah, he was hitting 4.
See, oh man. No, because
I mean,
okay,
I have a thought on that too, but
because okay, if I go from a statistical standpoint, from what I've read, is your 2 and 4 hitters are statistically your best hitters, all around hitters. That makes sense why Yelich is hitting second all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like third, fifth, first, whatever. There's a whole statistical analysis on it, but when you look at your prototypical leadoff man, he's the one who gets on base and
can move.
Yes, which Yaz can't move. So
you're not lying.
Slow. But I mean, I enjoy the unconventionalness of it, but I don't see it lasting just because I think Lowe will figure out how to not swing at bad pitches. Hopefully within the next couple of weeks, and hopefully learn how to take a walk every now and then like he knows he can. So that's where I don't see it lasting. So long story short, nay.
Yeah, I mean, like, I could see him, like, flying in there every once in a while. I mean, like, they did it with Thames for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And, you don't have to have a prototypical leadoff hitter to be there, obviously. Like, that's the game of baseball now. It's not necessarily prototypical. One thing that, for those of you out there that don't know, I coach baseball as well, and just when I put together a lineup, one thing that I do, and granted it's at a lower level, so it's easier to screw around with it a little more, but I do bunches of 3, and that kind of seems like what he was doing. You bunch up your 3 where it's like you have a guy that's just going to get on base for you. Your middle guy is someone who's going to find a way to move him over, whether it's getting a hit, which you look at in this grouping, Yelich is a guy who's going to get a hit by moving him over versus bunting. And I know that's a thing of the past with people, but Yelich is going to find a way to move him over. And then Moustakas is going to be the guy that cleans him up. And then you look in the next section, it's Braun, Thames, Arcia. Now I would flip probably Arcia and Thames based off it, but I know he likes to do the lefty-righty matchups. But I could also see how that works out for them. And then you go Shaw, Woodruff, Gamble. That's not necessarily the way that I kind of factor them together, but like you could see even like justifying like even doing that just based off of the way that I look at it through there too. Each of those different guys fulfill a role in mini lineups, if that makes sense.
And for any of you who like want to learn about because I could go on for days, and a book that is really good at explaining everything, it's called literally The Book, and it's Playing the Percentages in Baseball. Fantastic book. You'll learn a lot. It'll blow your mind, but it does talk
no free ads.
What?
No free ads.
Sorry.
Just kidding.
But anyway, one thing that I found interesting that I'll touch on right away is not only is Yelich the best hitter, therefore he hits second from a statistical standpoint, but also when you have a guy as Lorenzo Cain batting first when he does bat first, It's
Mhm.
nice having a lefty batting second. Therefore, it is harder for a right-handed catcher to
See
throw
the runner.
with Lorenzo Cain being a base stealer.
Hmm. Yeah,
Crazy
for
stuff,
sure.
man.
Yeah, no, you add you add it's there's so many little games that you do putting a lineup together, and that's the fun part about it, but also the thing that can drive you crazy as a manager. Um, then the last one, it's not a yay or nay, but since we're keeping it in this section, um, are or are there any trade targets that you might be looking for going forward?
There's one that is kind of random, but we were linked with him in the off season, I believe. Very random, but Will Smith.
Will Smith, love it.
I love that guy. Like, love the guy to death. I was so sad to see him leave when he was traded the other
Imagine
year.
having him and JJ get their
Oh my
little love
gosh,
affair back together.
that romance was fantastic. No, but from a standpoint of, our
Just being
bullpen.
good.
What?
You said from a standpoint of, and I said from a standpoint of just being good.
Yeah, I mean, he's really good, and he can add to the back end of the bullpen because I've accepted the fact that JJ isn't going to be the JJ that we saw last year, at least so far in the season. So I think you're missing a couple of things also with Corbin Burns being kind of schizophrenic and the fact that, like, he can't figure out what he's doing. So I think you kind of need that reassurance in the back end of the bullpen and
Mhm.
not having it constantly be Hader all the time or taking a gamble on Albers, which he's been good as of recent, which has been
Yeah, he
great.
has.
But I think you kind of need that reassurance in that back end of the bullpen. Also, fantastic clubhouse dude. He already knows the ball club. It's a perfect match. I would love to see him back in Milwaukee.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you at all. I didn't really think about that either, but he would be, say you could pull something off with, if they do look at getting Bumgarner, if you can go Bumgarner Smith, be a lot of money to take on, and I don't know if they could do it or how they would do it, but yeah, that'd be pretty cool situation bringing in two like legit dudes into your pitching situation that you got going on. I still think you can throw Hernan Perez back there, but that's
Into the back of the
yeah,
bullpen?
I'm just kidding. I
I mean, he looks great.
I got a few actually. One I've kind of gone back and forth on, thinking not as much anymore, but I'm gonna throw him out there. And you could go either of these guys, but the first one's Nico Goodrum from Detroit. He can play anywhere in the infield for the most part. I'd say more right side with second base and first base. And he can play the outfield as well. I know you have Hernan Perez, but I feel like the more versatile a guy can be, where essentially you're basically taking Aguilar's spot and making it someone who can play more spots. That may not be the worst move. And this is really dependent on what they want to do with Hira and what they decide to do with Shaw. Because Shaw does have options, but at that point now, he does. So if say you send him down, I'm not sure if he has one or two though. So if you send him down, I mean, that's one thing that's been gold in baseball lately is options. So you decrease your value if you take options away from him. Granted, now at this point of being 26, is 26 or 27, it's something that already is starting to limit you a little bit. But again, I'm sure the Brewers have no interest in really sending him down because they want to be able to utilize him going forward as a piece. But who knows? And the other guy that I've always had like a little baseball crush on him, and you're not gonna do it, but I know he's hurt. I don't know. I was hoping his timetable is more clear of when he's gonna come back, but he is not going to be ready for the Brewers. But that was Josh Harrison. I love Josh Harrison when he was with the Pirates, but he is not. He's not a guy. So I don't know why I brought him up. I just really like Josh Harrison. Anyway, The other two that are legit ones that I think the Brewers should really take a look at. The first one is Jeff McNeil with the Mets. Jeff McNeil is absolutely outstanding, and no one knows who he is, and I love every part of that. So Jeff McNeil, this is gonna get the juices flowing a little bit. For a career, he has an on-base percentage of .394. On-base percentage this year is .407. He's hitting .342. He has 32 runs. And I don't know. I love every single bit of Jeff McNeil in a Brewer uniform because he's everything that the Brewers don't necessarily have. As a contact guy that just gets on base for you. When he gets on base for you, he's going to go score. Another guy who I think the Brewers need to go get, but I don't know if the records will lend themselves to it. I think the Brewers need, and he has made an appearance on this podcast of being mentioned, but Howie Kendrick needs to be in a Brewer uniform by the trade deadline, dependent on how much he costs. Howie Kendrick, he doesn't get played. For some reason, the Nationals don't play him. He's got a cool on-base percentage of .388. He's been a guy who's hit his entire career. He can play every single position on the field. And he's got 12 home runs in that stretch of not playing every single day. He's a guy who's found a recent surge in power. He's got an OPS of 976. I don't know. I am wholeheartedly on board with them. You know, the Nationals are kind of on a fringe on what are they going to do. They're 8.5 games back from the Braves, who, with the Braves pitching staff, they seem to be starting to kind of put the foot on the gas pedal and move forward. I don't know. I don't see the Nationals in the picture by the All-Star break. And if the Brewers could get Howie Kendrick, he's an older dude who has an expiring contract this year. Why not go take a look at and kick the tires on him? He can be your first baseman. You now have the ability to dump Aguilar if that's something that you want to do. And you can at that time you can decide what you want to do with Shaw Hira, that situation, and Howie Kendrick and Thames can bounce back and forth going righty-lefty matchups, and I think he's a great addition for them as he can fill in different spots too. Long-winded answer, the Brewers need to go get Howie Kendrick, like now. I don't know what your thoughts are, but I think that
I looked him up quick on Fangraphs and saw the age of 35 and was kind of terrified of where you were going. But then I looked at his weighted on base average, which I know you hate when I bring up.
Oh, that's fine. I don't care. Average. I don't care. I just never want to look it up when you tell me to.
He's kept a beautiful one throughout his career.
He always hits. He always hits.
I mean, he has one at 403. Now that's only in 63 games. So how many games are we in? I don't know. But anyway, I'm impressed. I'd be fine with that. And also, you look at it too from a standpoint where hopefully we're in the playoffs, and he's just having a guy who's been around, I think, is really helpful as well.
Yeah, Howie Kendrick, I've always, obviously I said I like Josh Harrison. I loved Howie Kendrick his entire career, and I think I just have a thing for dudes that can play everywhere and hit the ball. Same thing with Jeff McNeil. I think Jeff McNeil would be way out of the Brewers' price range, but who knows with what they have over in New York. It's a dumpster fire in the front office, even with Brody Van Wagen up there, who was supposed to be the guy to clean everything up, and deciding to trade Jared Kelenic for Cano and Edwin Diaz. I don't know. There just doesn't seem to be a lot of great decisions being made over there. All right. Keep it rolling. I'm holding this back. Let's keep moving. Weeks in review. Who's your highlight player over this stretch?
I kind of have to go with Brandon Woodruff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we talked about it earlier with just having, him and Zach Davies to be able to go out when your bullpen's a little stretched and when, the overall team is tired and hasn't had an off day, for Brandon Woodruff to come out. And then even to like in the 6th inning when he got touched up, but then to come back in the 7th and continue to fight through it. Like, that's pretty impressive from a young player. So it definitely has to go to Woody.
Yeah, I'm going to go with side note. Sorry, any basketball fans out there, John Horst was named NBA Executive of the Year, and Mike Budenholzer was named Coach of the Year. Now we're waiting on the Giannis to get MVP. Hopefully that's coming up soon.
I hope so, man. He needs to win MVP.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, so my MVP of these few weeks is the MVP, Christian Yelich. We don't seem to give him enough play in the sense of just saying, yeah, he's great. Well, the guy's going absolutely nuts. Just home run after home run. I mean, the guy over the last 7, you're seeing Christian Yelich hit 346 on base, 370, 3 home runs, 6 RBI. I mean, and he scores when he's on base, 7 runs. I don't know. He lives up to everything, every expectation people give him. He lives up to it that so much that it's almost boring.
And that's the thing. Like, I mean,
that's why we don't talk about him that much, because it seems boring.
Last year, everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, he's doing all this stuff," and now it's come to the point where he's just doing the same over and over again.
Yeah.
When he hit the
Sweet
double,
man.
like when he hit the double, I think it was yesterday. It's like, dude, really? Like,
that's it.
You're like, I have this bad habit of just thinking, like, when are you gonna stop? Like, and I know, like, he probably won't because he hates the word regression and is like very angry about all that. But like, it's been impressive, man.
Well, like you talk about a bad habit. I have a bad habit of just being like, "Oh, sick dude, you hit a double. Why didn't you put it over the wall?" Like, way to go, buddy. Like Friday night, he got a hold of one and hit it oppo left center field, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, that thing's going out. Oh no, that thing's warning track. Way to go, dude. Way to drive in a run. I'm just playing, but at the same time, it is kind of like it's like you just expect it out of him, and that's so impressive to do that and live up to the expectation for this long. I think they said over the last calendar year.
Impressive.
Yeah, it was like 53 home runs, hitting like 350.
Every time he hits the home run, I always think back to that clip of the let the kids play commercial.
Hit 50 home runs this year.
And he's like, I'm gonna hit 50 home runs this year. It's like, you will. Like,
probably.
At the rate you're going, you're gonna hit 60.
Yeah. So I mean, he's been just incredible, and I know everyone's gonna be like, "Oh yeah, he's been good." Yeah, well, we're gonna talk about him, especially just based off of that guy with the Josh Hader thing. You don't talk about him enough. Well, now we're talking about Christian Yelich, so shut up. Anyway,
Hader was impressive though the other day.
Yeah, he was. Now let's go to disappointing things. Who is your disappointment over this stretch?
Wow, that was a segue.
Sure was.
I gotta go with Jhoulys Chacin, man. It's killing me, man. It's killing me. The fact, like, I don't know. It gets me, like, it just doesn't seem like he's on it. Like, I don't know. There's just something about him where, like, nothing seems to be going for him, and he can't get himself onto a roll. And for me, that is incredibly frustrating, especially seeing the year that he had last year. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, he's driving me crazy. And I wrote an article on this about how he's cursed. So if you want to, little plug for Cream City, go read that thing because he's cursed, and I swear on it.
I would say the biggest thing for him right now is that he is running into poor timing.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what it is. So it's like he'll get in trouble in situations where you can't be getting in trouble. Like the other day, I think he went 4 1/3. It was either 4 1/3 or 4 2/3, and he ended up getting bases loaded, and you saw the wheels were starting to come off there. So he ends the game with 2 earned runs and 4 2/3 innings. So he's 1 out away from getting out of it. And they just said, we gotta just based off the track record this year, we got to get you out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's got to be frustrating for him as a pitcher, and it's frustrating for us as fans because we like him and we want him to do well. But a start like that last year, say he gets himself into that jam, he's allowed to get himself out of it more than likely. And you just don't see that from him this year because he hasn't been able to get himself out of it. So he has to have starts where he doesn't put himself in those jams for 6 innings consistently. Like, he needs to be able to do that where like you strand a runner on second, you do whatever it needs to get done, and that's not something you're seeing from him anymore, which I really hope he's able to bounce back to it. Going along that line, Chase Anderson he's been tough to watch the last couple starts.
Chase Anderson is also cursed, by the way.
Oh,
also
he's in that too? All right.
Yes.
All right. So it's not that they're ineffective at this point. It's just that they're cursed. I got it.
Exactly. You got
Yeah. Hey, all right. That's great. So, yeah, Chase Anderson has been tough. Got rocked for 6 runs in 5 innings, and he was just laboring through the whole thing, and just his month of June has been really bad. And you hope that maybe it's just a June curse. Hopefully that's what it is, and he can bounce back and do his thing. But the Brewers in general, pitching-wise, from starters, have not gotten anything remotely close to what they were having in May from their starters. So hopefully this is just a stretch, and hopefully you can kind of limp into the All-Star break and maybe get a few games under your belt. I mean, this looks like last year. Like last year, remember?
I remember.
It started in Miami. You're losing games in Miami. You get swept in a 5-gamer by the Pirates.
Yeah.
Rolling into All-Star break. People are calling for the Brewers to, sell at the deadline and everything. This team's cooked. They're done. I don't know. I don't think that there's any reason to panic, especially when your bad stretch is 4-9. So I'm optimistic going into this week with Seattle. I think Chase will be able to bounce back. Hopefully Shacin's be able to throw a good outing. I mean, both of those guys, if they could throw even 5 innings of shutout ball, that would just be huge. I think huge confidence boost for them. But we'll see what happens. Week preview, who are some guys that need to rebound? I mean, it kind of goes along with what we're talking about.
Yeah, so obviously he was sent down earlier this week, but Corbin Burnes, I mean, it pains me to see him struggle just because of what he has from a pitch look at it. Like, his spin rate is incredible and, like, blew the top of StatCast this year. Like, is extremely incredible, but to see him struggle has been killing me. And my dad brought up, and I wish I could remember the name of the player, but he was talking about how this one pitcher, he had all the pitches, everything, and just couldn't pitch. And that pains me to hear it because when a pitcher has everything, you just pray that they can do it. So hopefully he goes down into the minors, able to relax a little bit, chill out, and then get back on his feet.
Right. I hope the best for him. I mean, when he's on, he's on. And it's ridiculously good for the Brewers. When he's not pitching well, that really hurts a lot of things that Counsell wants to do with that team. Because having him there allows you to have a guy that was in Hader's role before he became the closer. And that's not something that every team has, and let alone have the luxury of having 2 guys that can do it. So hopefully he can get right and come back and fire like he was last year. My guy is Zach Davies. Davies, I mean, the Brewers just seem to hit for him when he's on there. So when he's on the hill, him and Woodruff seem to just get all the hits. It reminds me of Braden Looper back in the early 2010s, I believe it was. Or no, he would have been late 2000s. The guy had a 5+ ERA, but won 15 games. It was incredible. Just the Brewers seemed to hit whenever he was on the mound, even though he was really struggling. Not that these guys are like that, but they seem to hit whenever Davies is on the mound. But he needs to go get himself a nice little game, nice little start coming up tomorrow, and it'll be tough in a ballpark like Miller Park with the guys that can hit in Seattle, like the guys that can put balls out of the yard, because he'll face off against like a Dan Vogel. I think Vogelbach would play, even though he's mainly a DH, but I would think that they would play him at first, just based off of who they have. But we'll see. And Santana's been on an absolute tear for them, but and Narvaez too. Anyway, we'll get into who needs to chill out.
Speaking of Domingo Santana, that's who I have down.
Oh, still cool, because I had Narvaez and I didn't want to get into it.
Still don't regret trading him at all.
No.
But yeah.
No options for him.
Yeah, and from the fact that I think he's one of those players who has to play every day, and he wasn't going to get into Milwaukee, therefore he wasn't going to produce like he is.
Right.
So, don't regret it at all. And then for Pittsburgh, I'm going to say it every time, Adam Frazier, he kills the Brewers. I think his, just from a split standpoint, it's crazy what he's able to do against the Brewers. Like, his on-base percentage is .393 against the Brewers this year. So I can't stand when he plays us, man.
Yeah, I mean, another guy that goes in with that is Brian Reynolds. I don't know. I mean, I know he was supposed to be a guy that's good. He just blew up out of nowhere. Like, he's just been absolutely smoking the ball and getting on base, scoring runs, doing what you need him to at the top of the lineup for Pittsburgh. And him and Frazier have a similar approach at the plate where they're going to get on base and just fly around the base paths for you. So those always make me nervous when you have those, and then a couple guys who can put the ball in the yard. Like Bell's been pretty cooled off lately, but that's not necessarily a good thing because he can always snap right back into it and be pounding the ball again. You got Starlin Marte, who's hitting the ball. No, he's cooled off a little bit too, but you have a number of other guys, Colin Moran, guys that can go drive those runners in and even drive a guy in from first base. So that makes them a little. The Pirates are a frisky team. I wouldn't necessarily say they're a good team, but they're a team that's going to get after you a little bit, and just strictly based off of just explosiveness off of certain aspects of their team. My guy on the Mariners that needs to calm down is I'm going to go with the catcher fraternity here and go Omar Narvaez. Lefty bat, who's a catcher. You don't see that very often necessarily. But he's one of the better guys in the league, just hitting wise as far as catchers go. I mean, over his throughout the year, he's got 11 bombs, 295 average, 372 on base percentage. I mean, that's pretty out of your catcher slot. You're not necessarily always looking for offensive pop, but he's definitely providing it for him. Over his last 7, he's on base 423, hitting 364, and he's been scoring runs when he's on base with 5 runs. 5 runs with 8 opportunities on base. So that's a little bit of a scary thing for me that you are kind of hitting top to bottom if you have your catcher slot hitting for you, which is a blessing for them and a blessing for the Brewers with Grandal. Speaking back about that Braden Looper character, he last played in 2009 for the Brewers. He led the league in games started, led the league in earned runs against him with 113. And this is over 34 starts, and home runs against with 39. And he had a 5.22 ERA and won 14 games for the Brewers. That's insane. Granted, win-loss doesn't really matter, but he won 14 games with those statistics and led the league in starts. That's just wild to me. Anyway, with the Brewers, who needs to stay consistent for him?
I'm going to put down a kind of random one, but Eric Thames. I think when I was watching the game
good.
when I was watching the game yesterday, I think it was either Rock or BA said he's just been kind of that silent, consistent dude who's done it for you. And that's exactly what he's done. I mean, he's been able to fill that void, obviously, with Jesus Aguilar. I don't want to get into it because it only makes me angry. But he's been able to fill in like Aguilar did with him last year. So I think if he can stay consistently well at first base and, you know, continue to take over that starting role, that'd be really good for the Brewers.
Eric Thames, over his last 7 games, is hitting .286. Respectable, not phenomenal. And he's got 4 hits, and all of those hits are singles. And they have all come at times that the Brewers have needed it. He has also walked 3 times. He's struck out 4 times. Typical Thames there. But he has been on base. In these last 6 games that he's played, he has been on base at a .389 clip. That is huge. Huge, huge, huge. He may not be driving the ball to the yard, which that'll come with him. But he is on base he is on base at a .389 clip, which blows my mind. Because like you don't necessarily, like you said, like kind of that silent assassin type, like right now, and that's been a huge help for the Brewers. Another guy who's been getting on base a lot over the past few games is Lorenzo Cain, and he's my guy that needs to stay consistent. .455 over the last 5 games. He's walked 3 times, gotten 6 hits, scored 4 runs. You need that from a guy who's going to be at the top of your lineup. Enough said, just based off what we talked about before. Next thing, who's going to have a big week?
Well, I'm going to disagree with you a little bit on the Lorenzo Cain point. I mean, I'm not debating that he hasn't been good, but I will debate that he hasn't been himself. From the little bit that I was able to watch and just kind of look at from his own perspective, he's been swinging at a lot of bad stuff. And that's, you know, that gets on my nerves a lot.
Last time I checked, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is in the Hall of Fame. Vladimir Guerrero is in the Hall of Fame, and he swung at literally every pitch. So as long as you're getting on base, I think you're good.
It's true, though, but he's a person who strives off of quality at bats.
True.
And when he's leading off, I want him to take up pitches. So if he's swinging at non-strikes, that bothers me.
But there's a thing. So you talk about quality at bats. What is a quality at bat? A quality at bat doesn't necessarily mean what you're swinging at. So, you know, obviously, yes, it does, because it factors into you taking enough pitches for it to literally qualify as a quality at bat. But when it comes down to it, as long as you're finding a way to get on base, anytime you get on base, it's a quality at bat, you know? So to me, let him do what he's going to do, because he needs to find a way to snap back into not hitting 240, you know? And not to like discount your point of better, you know, swinging at better pitches, but if you're getting on base right now and that's the way that you're figuring out a way to get on, especially for a guy who you are viewing, you're paying a lot of money to be an all-star candidate. Like, I mean, obviously that's not what you're looking for, but to be playing at an all-star level, let alone maybe an MVP level, like he's a weird athlete, and he's a guy that needs to do what he's got to do. And I agree with you that pitch selection could be a little better, but if you are getting on base right now, just keep rolling, big dog. Like, that's all I got to say for him. And he's stealing bases too.
Yeah, I mean, that's all valid points, but I think characteristically for him, he kind of needs to snap back into it.
Sure. Yeah, I get what you're saying. So that's who you had for big week, right?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to go a little off the beaten path and go with Junior Guerra. The guy, Guerra hasn't been over the Brewers' last 7 games. He's been pretty abysmal for him. He's thrown 2 2/3 innings. Just walking dudes, hitting dudes, giving up runs. Like, the hits that he gives up, he hasn't given up a ton of hits, but the hits that he's given up are big ones that are driving in runs, and that's a real problem. You know, you give up 3 runs, doesn't seem like a lot, but when you've pitched less than 3 innings, that makes it tough for the Brewers, and the Brewers kind of view him as a guy that they need to go to in some tough situations for some higher leverage innings. And you hope that he's a guy that can get you. He can be a good out getter for you, basically. Let's wrap it up. Bold prediction for the week. What do you got?
I got that. I know Count said that he'll at least get 2 starts, but I got that Adrian Hauser will become a regular in the rotation. Just from, his stuff standpoint, I mean, he's got, I believe, a 4-pitch mix, which is kind of almost a rarity at this point. So I think if he's able to utilize that well and have good game plans with Yaz or who's ever catching, I think he can become a regular in the bullpen or a regular in the rotation who does very well.
Right. And I've become quite a big fan of watching Adrian Hauser pitch over the course of this year. So I hope that's something that's correct going forward. And I will go with the Brewers will sweep Seattle. Not only will the Brewers sweep Seattle,
you say that,
the Brewers will sweep Seattle and score 5+ runs each game. They're going to go on an offensive onslaught and win some ball games for the hometown fans in Milwaukee.
I feel like every time you say we're going to sweep a team, we get swept by that team.
Yep, but it's not happening this time.
Okay, but if it does, we're gonna need to have a talk about this.
We won't have to. Good night, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the pod.